Dr. Jaishankar, let me start with you. Normally, I come to you last. This time, I'm starting with you. Simply because I'm worried that before this panel is over, you will be off to the next country. You've been traveling a bit. You were in Brussels. Before that, you've been in 3 different countries in this continent. What's your assessment of what's happening here?
It's a big question. A lot of things are happening here. But I think I know where you're trying to go, and let me actually go there. What we are seeing, obviously, across the world are the consequences of all this volatility and turbulence, which has been very strong in the last few months. A lot of the attention has gone globally to the trade issues. I think in Europe, almost equal attention has gone to security issues, alliance issues, but to some extent, political issues, political ideological issues, and I would even say, really, what kind of world is it going to be? I mean, how will nation states behave? How will they relate to each other, etc.? So that's what's happening. Now, we all have a business to do. And our effort, the reason why I was, for those of you who don't know, on my last trip in Holland, Denmark, and Germany, which was in the middle of last month. And I'm here now in Belgium, both Belgium and EU, in France. And then we go on to Cyprus and later on to Croatia. So the reason why we are putting so much focus on Europe right now is that we can see there's a very sort of big, almost a quantum jump into multipolarity. There's a realization in Europe that a lot of its problems and solutions will have to be analyzed and thought through by Europe itself. And so a Europe which is today more self-aware, which is more self-reliant, which is more strategically autonomous, will obviously want to look for partners who think similarly and can work with Europe in that respect. And I think that gives a kind of an additional impetus to India-Europe relations, which were evolutionary, but I predict a very sharp acceleration in that. A good example is really what I was discussing last 2 days in Brussels. We made very strong progress in our free trade agreement negotiations. We are seeking to conclude a defense and security partnership with the European Union. We are looking at a space agreement. We have individual agreements with individual states of Europe on mobility of talent. We are now trying to see if we can get it across some kind of understanding across the entire union. Again, of course, a lot of discussion about connectivity, because if you're going to do more business and as I said, we are all trying to de-risk the global economy and stabilize the global economy at that time. So connectivity is very much part of that conversation. So that's the kind of picture I'd like to present to you.
And in these conversations, and I know maybe you can't respond to this, but I'll still ask, how soon can we expect that FTA, that elusive FTA?
No, well, it's not elusive, it's painstaking. I think we have set ourselves the goal of trying to complete it by this year end. And I'm told I don't have direct jurisdiction over it, but I'm told that half the chapters are done. And of the remaining half, considerable progress has been made. Our trade ministers have met 3 times in the last 6 weeks. I think we will see another round of meetings probably by the end of this month. There is, I would say, a certain urgency and a certain energy, which is different. I would say. I think the negotiators and the stakeholders are reacting to what is a global environment where the importance of doing this FTA has become that much more.
Let me turn to the minister from Armenia, Minister Mirzoyan. When I was preparing for this panel, I happened to be in Yerevan, and I heard your Prime Minister speak. And his speech, which he gave in a very Steve Jobs style, with a clicker in his hand and presentation on the screen, was all about connectivity. And in some sense, Minister Jaishankar just spoke about the importance of connectivity to actually diversify and build resilience, right? So how does Armenia, which has a Asian geography and a European soul, I don't know how best to describe it, but maybe this could be a good description. How does Armenia see this new moment where there is a thirst for connectivity, thirst for diversification, and a role for countries?
Well, thank you for the question. But first of all, my condolences to the families of those who lost their lives in this plane crash, and thank you for the invitation. The first thing that I would like to constitute is that Armenia is very much pleased to see that France and India have already become strategic partners, and Europe and Indo-Pacific are very much have mutual big interest to deepen their ties. And this sense of satisfaction has, of course, its reasons. The first obvious thing, we do have strategic relations with France, and we are deepening our relations with the European Union, and we do have strategic relations with India, and we are, again, deepening very much our relations. And the second obvious reason, when you have a look at the map, you will see Europe, you will see India, and there are some countries in between. So Armenia is in between. If you want to connect France and India, and my regards to the previous speaker and representative of the company, sea is one of the ways. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, that's not always swift. These days, not always probably safe as well. And also there are terrestrial routes, the ground routes. And here Armenia has a very crucial place. Armenia is situated in South Caucasus, which is like in between of Europe and India. We are promoting connectivity projects. We are investing huge money in our infrastructure. Also, Armenia has four neighbors: Georgia in the north, Iran in the south, Azerbaijan in east, and Turkey in west. So we have excellent relations with two of the four countries, Georgia and Iran, and we're trying to normalize our relations with Azerbaijan and Turkey with the understanding that we're going to open the borders, have railway connection, and if we even gave us very specific name to this project, the infrastructure part, Crossroads of Peace. So we are trying to create an environment of peace and prosperity around Armenia so that everyone could benefit, not only Armenia, not only Azerbaijan, Turkey, Georgia, Iran, but in a larger region. So if you want to connect India with France, I must say you have to pay also attention what is in between, and there is a space, an environment there where you can have a rest, refueled, and then continue your trip.
Minister, the broader connectivity projects today are also looking at digital connectivity, knowledge connectivity, innovation connectivity. I've been very impressed with the Armenia startup sector, the technology sector. Do you think there is now a business case for actually looking at the hubs in Europe, such as France, Bangalore, and other hubs in India, and of course the new centers of tomorrow, such as Armenia?
Absolutely. So this is another direction where we are investing very much, and we have, there are several preconditions, and probably the most important is that we have the human resources, the people, the talents who are in this business. And secondly, we have electricity for data centers, for, the infrastructure. So this is another interesting coincidence. 2 days ago, we announced an establishment of a huge AI project in Armenia with participation of French Mistral, NVIDIA, and several other actors. And this is only one of the examples. So again, when you look at to AI, when you look at the IT and cooperation in this spheres, Armenia is a safe haven for 100%.
And just to inform all of you, France hosted the AI Impact Summit last year. India is going to be doing it in February next year. So there is a continuity in terms of partnership even there. Let me turn to Abigail first and our European colleagues. So we moved from Asia to the middle of Asia and Europe, and now we are coming to Europe. Abigail, you heard the minister speak. You've been in conferences recently, and I saw you were quite busy in certain discussions. We say the right things. There is a complaint, there is a criticism that India and Europe say the nice things when they're in the same room and to each other. Do we do the right things? What needs to be done to actually really exploit the potential that exists? We are a $200 billion, nearly $200 billion trading relationship. So it's not small by any stretch of imagination, but certainly it is underperforming if it were a stock. How do we give substance to this relationship?
Thanks, Samir, for the invitation, and it makes it very special for me to be in my hometown, right? To be sitting next to you here. I think I admit that a marriage with Europe is not a sexy one. And
I didn't say that.
But basically, we speak a lot about it. In principle, we look like a couple, but actually it's not sexy at all. And, but what Europe has to offer at the moment is something solid, something predictable, and something long-term. So there is a momentum on both sides, right? Because when you think solid, when you think long-term, and when you think predictable, you're like, ooh, I made it a long way. And for that to happen, I think there needs to be trust, and with trust comes this question of hedging. And at the moment, the big question, and something we haven't heard, is the term US, it's the term China, and it's Russia. And it's the question of, for Europeans, if tomorrow China comes with a red carpet, what are we going to do? And I think this can have an impact on the relationship with India. It's vis-à-vis the US, we are in these negotiations. I think all of us spend an incredible political capital in negotiating with the US. We do not know where this is going to land. And is this going to have an impact on the relationship? Yes, of course. And then the question of the war in Ukraine and the Russia dimension, right? Which is key for us at the moment. The second element is, if you want to make this marriage last, then you need to be comprehensive. And in being comprehensive, Europe is a fantastic trading partner. This is what we do best, probably. And today, what we come to do best as well is to invest in the security and defense partnership components. And I have to say, a year ago, when you would go to European leaders and say there are linkages between the Indo-Pacific security theater and the European security architecture, everyone was raising eyebrows. Mm-hmm. And for us as China specialists, this was like, this is obvious. And now you have European leaders that are convinced by it. You had President Macron at the Shangri-La going all over about the interlinkages of the theater and the fact that Europe is going to be a security and defense partner for the Indo-Pacific countries. And we are in a moment where the Americans no longer believe in it. And a year ago, I can tell you, we had the Biden administration on our back saying there are linkages. And now today, we had Esquets at the Shangri-La not even mentioning the fact that Europe have basically security and defense interests in the region, when today 40% of our trade is actually going through the South China Sea. So we need to have the Indo-Pacific partners recognizing today that Europe is becoming a security and defense partner that matter. And to make it concrete, the list is extremely long, but there needs to be this recognition that we do not only matter for trade, we also matter for security and defense, and we can look good and we can be sexy with it.
Look, I think that's a valid point. But if you go beyond that, let me ask you that question. The complaint is, the refrain is that eventually security and sovereignty have a deep relationship. And EU is a big actor when you club up. But when sovereignty comes into play to ensure certain consequences of relationships, there are largely a bunch of smaller countries. And in that sense, EU as a security actor is a question I want to ask you. That can EU be a security actor? Europeans have always been security actors. Look, we were colonized by Europeans, so we understand both your trading and your security prowess. But the fact here is that can Brussels be a security actor, or will we continue to have to rely on France, for example, as being the only real sovereign strategic capital in this world? So that's a question to you.
Okay. As a French and a former European official, I'm convinced that yes, Europe can be a security partner per se. And it's coming to what the minister said, right? There is this political momentum in which we are, which is quite unique. And basically the fact that there is now a commissioner that has a mandate to do that the SAFE program on which we are planning to basically rebuild our defense industrial capacity, it's 150 billion euros, right? And this is going to be concrete. This is money that we are ready to put at the table. And within this effort to basically rebuild the defense industrial base of Europe, we are welcoming our strategic partners. And in that sense, I think India has a special footnote in what Europe has prepared to rebuild its defense industrial space.
Thank you. Let me turn to Francesco. Sorry to keep you waiting, Francesco. We are coming to business last, but it should be business first. Let me ask you that question. Being a chairman of an association of those interested in the maritime industry in Italy, being a CEO yourself and heading your group, how bullish are businesses on this new special kind of a relationship that India and Europe want to develop? Why is India and the Indo-Pacific important to a company like yours or an association like yours?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me to this panel. And after I was mid-March at the Raisina Dialogue in New Delhi, which was a beautiful experience for me. Yes, I represent an association of private business in my region. My region is the northeastern part of Italy, surrounding the seaport of Trieste. And we have established this association to promote IMEC, to promote it at political level and business level locally in Italy and in the European Union. And we have established this association in October last year. And you were talking about critical aspects, disruptions. It's not only the last 6 months. We are experiencing troubled times for a long time, for already at least 5 years. Let's say from the pandemic onwards, in the supply chain. And our first reason to promote IMEC is that we, private business, want to promote activities in the growing economies. And there is no doubt that India is growing very fast and is expected to become one of the largest economies of the world. And the same applies also to the Emirates and to Saudi Arabia. The second reason why we support, and we have been supporting more and more this initiative, is linked to the last 6 months and the interest of private business to diversify from the common paths of trade and develop new trade links. And we are very supportive of the free trade agreement between the European Union and India. We have then some more specific Mediterranean linked aspects that I would like to underline. We have suffered the crisis of the Red Sea in the last 1.5 years now. and we have understood how fragile is that route, with at least two choke points, Bab el-Mandeb and Suez Canal. And we believe that it is very important for the supply chains to develop alternative routes, which would be the land bridges from the Arabian Gulf to the Mediterranean. We know very well that these land bridges will not carry the bulk of the cargo. The bulk has to transit the Suez Canal, but if we have these land bridges, it will be less interesting to create problems in the Red Sea. So we think it is extremely important for the Mediterranean to create these land bridges. In addition to that, land bridges in the region can also offer to the market some additional services, which are faster transport services, which can allow a new market to develop for goods in exchange between Europe and India and the Middle East. The last aspect I would like to underline is that we are as well convinced that we have to push and grow business with the western part of Asia, which is in the end the Indian Ocean, both the Arab Gulf and the Bengal Bay, because in the medium-long term, we are concerned about the Arctic route. And the Arctic route could cut the Mediterranean out of the business from Far East, from the north of China, from Korea, and from Japan. So this is...
No, fantastic interventions. Thank you. Dr. Jaishankar.
Would you allow me one comment here and one comment there before
Sure.
Then give me, first what Mr. Parisi said. Absolutely, I agree with you. I think one of the biggest problems today the international economy faces are supply chains, the resilience, the security of supply chains, and everything he said, the uncertainties created by pandemic. So just imagine one geography, you had the pandemic unfold out there, and we saw the consequences for the entire global economy. Now, pandemics can happen again. Okay. We saw one ship block the Suez Canal, I think for about 40 days. Okay. We saw the consequences of it. We are seeing a bunch of people in Yemen hit shipping with drones, which, believe me, I've seen one intact, which doesn't cost more than $10,000. Okay. And that drone has the capacity to take out a ship. So, and we're going to see more of this. We're going to see, for example, climate events. Who knows where the next flood will be? Who knows, where weather will take a bad turn? So, given the conflicts, we saw, what happened after Ukraine. I mean, the problems of Black Sea, the entire world food market and fertilizer market was completely impacted by, fighting between two countries some distance away. So the point, I think, is today, both in terms of the new possibilities, the Arctic possibility, for example, as well as securing, the international economy, we need many more answers. And, what my Armenian colleague said, yes, we need land, we need sea, we need air, we need actually all of the above in as many options and as many variants as possible. And today, how do you create combinations who will make new connectivity initiatives? I think this has become a very important part today of diplomacy. And to this, I want to add a thought to some of you, because you may not readily know this. What the IMEC, and even without the IMEC, we are seeing up to the western coast of India, which is where many of your ships also come. You have a fairly ready and efficient access, despite what the Houthis are doing. Now, what we are trying to do in India, we are taking making very major investments in railways. Okay, and then trying to connect Eastern India all the way to Vietnam. So actually, if we can pull that off, you will get from Europe a route all the way to the Pacific, which will be significantly land-based, but partly sea-based. And in some ways, it would be a counter to a reliance on Arctic whenever the Arctic opens up. So it is, the connectivity game, I think, and this is a long game. I mean, connectivity initiatives, multiple decadal, And when they are done, remember, I mean, the Suez Canal took ages to make, but once it was done, you see what a profound impact it's had on the world. So I think this whole connectivity issue really deserves much more attention. My second comment is on Europe. Yes, surely. I mean, I agree, we need, solid, predictable partners. I mean, these are happy marriages when they happen. But I would urge you, to don't have such a mind block about hedging, because you will never get a partner who thinks identically. I mean, this is political advice, not a personal one. So look, what will happen with Europe? I mean, Europe is today discovering even the United States, with whom it has an alliance, has very different thinking on many issues. So Europe has to find common ground rather than say, I will only work with those who think like me. You'll have to start working with people who think 50%, 60%, 40% like you. Because you're unlikely to find someone who will agree 80, 90, 100% with you. So I do think this mentality of hedging and, sort of settling for a practical ability to work with another country or another power center is a thinking which has to grow really in Europe. And my last comment, if you'll allow me, just 2 minutes more. We are sitting at what is called the Mediterranean dialogue. I don't know how many of you have thought about India as a country with Mediterranean interests. I don't know how many Indians have thought about our Mediterranean interests. So let me give it to you in 4 or 5 points. There are 460,000 Indians who live around the Mediterranean. Our trade with Mediterranean countries is roughly about $80 to $85 billion a year. Indian companies operate a port in the Mediterranean, and they're building an airport in the Mediterranean, probably more. We source fertilizers in a very big way out of the Mediterranean. We have military relationships with some Mediterranean countries, in fact, more than a few. Our water technology has been significantly influenced by a Mediterranean country. Many of our submarine cables go through the Mediterranean. We've spoken about connectivity. We even have peacekeeping forces deployed in the Mediterranean, in the littorals of the Mediterranean. So don't think of us as a country far away, and here is the Mediterranean and there is India. We are in the Mediterranean today, and that is why we are sitting here. What happens in this part of the world? I mean, when I look at the last few years, I've seen my Prime Minister actually pretty much visit the Mediterranean, and he is going to be here fairly soon. So the point I'm making is that there is today sort of a deep interest we have in the future of the Mediterranean. So think of us also now as family.
2 out of the last 3 inaugural speakers at the Raisina dialogue have been from the Mediterranean. So for us, it was natural to be here in this region as well. That's why we are here. We are your conference. We are not India's conference. We are a Mediterranean conference. No, but Dr. Jaishankar, I wanted to ask you a question before you started responding to other two, but I'll leave it with you and I'll come back to you in the final round. I want to ask you, you mentioned connectivity is itself now a diplomacy agenda, imperative, and of course defined its frameworks. I want to look at 2 or 3 such connectivity-based relationships that may emerge. For example, Francesco was mentioning Middle East, Mediterranean, India. And we are really talking for some years now about a France, UAE, India conversation, for example. Now you have I was surprised that in Marseille, Minister, and this is to you as well, Marseille has a huge Armenian population. and in many ways, can we be thinking about that kind of a relationship that drives the connectivity, land bridge agenda, or innovation agenda, innovation connectivity? I want to leave this with the two of you. But Abigail, I want to turn to you. And then I want to go to Minister Mirzoyan after that. But first to you. You have been studying China. Why is it that there is a choice here that Europe has to make? Who is in Europe forcing you to make these choices? That it's either China or India. As the world economy grows, you could certainly be rebalancing from China. But why is it that it's a black and white question for Europe? And why is it that growth with India cannot be a standalone project? Why is it contingent on what you do with Beijing or what you do with Washington, D.C.? Why is Europe not looking at us as an independent project to pursue? Why are we always looked at through an indirect gaze?
I think we are becoming a geopolitical partner, right? So we look at the world as a whole, and we look at the quality and the security of the partnerships we are building. And this is why hedging is not going to work out. When we look at the relationship we have with China, it's basically it's our second trading partner. It's we have a degree of interdependency with China that is pretty high. And what Europe has been doing for the past 7 years is to look at the trade relationship and say, okay, this 70% of our trade is okay, and this is going to continue. And then there is 30% where we have national security interests that are at play, and where there we do need to address the relationship we have with Beijing. And so the question of how do we look at India, and is India-Europe relationship a standalone project? Yes, it is. But right now, there is a question for me, which is this momentum that we are having in Europe-India relationship is driven by a geopolitical moment. It is driven by the fact that what we are both after is a degree of predictability. For us, what we are after is diversification, and India can play a role into that. I mean, I heard everyone saying we need to secure our supply chains. This is more or less what everyone has said on this panel, and this is very important, right? All the trade routes, we do need to make sure that we bring a degree of security in that. And for that, you do choose the partners with whom you are going to do that. And to put that into perspective, which also brings the question of what can we do more together. Today, China refines 100% of the critical raw materials that we have and that we need for our defense industrial base. It's a big issue for Europe. It is becoming a big issue because the US and China are escalating over export licensing on these critical raw materials and rare earth. So the question is, for example, if we consider that we put aside this question of hedging, because this is one of concern, can we think about joint procurement? Can we think about a joint strategy in stockpiling? Because it's out of necessity, because this is something where both India and Europe have a problem. We have a joint interest. We have some kind of shared values that we want to cement the relationship we have on. And we have geostrategic necessity. Okay.
So looking at some critical sectors, ambitious projects to kind of create symbols of this new relationship. Minister Mirzoyan and to Dr. Jaishankar, what are some interesting ideas for these new plurilateral groups for connectivity that can shape the future? What are the kind of partnerships that could really cement this new moment?
Well, during the whole conversation, there were several expressions that I would like to pay attention to. You said business first. Everybody was speaking about supply chains, disrupted supply chains, economic benefits. But my impression is, and I'm sorry to say, that we are missing something, although Abigail did her best to touch upon this topic as well. But if the economic benefits are the core of everything what is going on in the world, then then probably Europe should continue buying gas from Russia and oil from Russia. I don't know. Then probably if the connectivity, the easiest and cheapest ways are the core of the things, then probably, I'm sorry to say that, then probably India should connect with the rest of the world, with the West, through Pakistan. So it's not taking place, right? There should be a reason why. This makes at least me to think that there is something beyond the economic benefits. There are geopolitical interests, and here is why, and I strongly believe in this. This is why Europe, France, want to get closer with India, and the vice versa. India wants to get closer with Europe, because again, if you speak about economic benefits, there are cheapest ways and more efficient ways. If you speak about the willingness and aspiration to be a bigger power, then there are always bigger fishes in the ocean. Let's have a frank conversation. There is the United States, there is China, there is Russia. They are all stronger military-wise, no? Aren't they? So behind this mutual aspiration to be closer to each other, I also see some geopolitical aspiration by India and by Europe, and I see a wish to have a stronger saying in geopolitical affairs. And this is fair. But to justify this wish, I'm a third country, not EU, not India, I'm Armenia, right? And why I want to back these aspirations, why I want to support, because I see some justification behind these aspirations to have stronger and more just and more fair international order. International order is disrupted, starting from pandemic and then the war in Ukraine, and that's why the world went crazy, right? So if you want to rebuild international order, and if Europe and India want to have a stronger saying in this, then and you also touched upon, you spoke about a bunch of other countries, right? Then countries like Armenia might be wanting to support you here. If not, if it's just a wish to have power for having a bigger power, and I'm very sorry, this was not a direct answer to your question, but these were my observations.
No, I think it's a valid question. I think there's a point here, sir. Maybe I can turn to you now on this.
So why you want to get closer? Maybe you share the ideas, and then we will support or not support. So
connectivity has to have an intrinsic values link as well. I think that's the proposition. Right?
That's it, because India is the strongest democracy, right? And EU is the continent or company or club of countries with strongest democratic institutions. But we see also that we see also that the European EU countries are starting hesitating. No, is everything okay within Europe? Are the demands justified? Minister Jaishankar, you also spoke about the coincidence of 80%, 70%. So these are
that's a very valid point. And sorry, just for a lighter moment, I thought you said country club of countries, Europe. That's why I heard it like that. But I thought maybe, Europe in that sense is an interesting collection. But you're right. Democracy is values, the larger intent and purpose. Dr. Jaishankar.
No, I think it's a very relevant answer. Because I totally agree that one of the things which has gone wrong with the world is a kind of cost determinism by which choices have been made. And the result of that cost determinism is we have ended up with an over-concentration of capabilities in one geography, which is creating problems for everybody else. I, again, join my colleague in saying it's not just price points and economic efficiencies, particularly in a digital era, which is very different from a manufacturing era. I think there are many other sensitivities, even embedded in products and services, which make value, which makes a concept like trust today very important. What do we mean by trust? Trust means intuitively we are comfortable with each other. So how do you get that comfort? Sometimes as Minister Mirzoyan said, by having similar values, similar approaches. Sometimes by saying, okay, in my difficulty, who supported me? Or in my security needs, who was willing to go the extra mile? So, and this is for real. It makes a difference. I mean, we are in Europe right now. There's no question, for example, that in Europe, for us, in many, many ways, France is the most trusted partner. Now, it didn't happen because one day people got up in the morning and said, "Oh, that's a choice I'm going to make." It was over a set of experiences. So let us say we've just come out of some security episodes right now. When I look at, okay, who stood by us, who would I trust, or with whom am I comfortable? It will surely have consequences on my choices and on my decisions. So I do accept his point. Cost does matter. I'm not saying businesses don't, but I think increasingly we have to balance, the pure cost factors with with longer term security, comfort, value factors. My only limited point is, look, you're not going to on India-EU, you're not overnight going to get 100% agreement on everything. You'll have to grow it.
Let's take the steps.
You're going to grow it by steps.
Francesco, you've been hearing this conversation. Intuitively, what do you think about relying on certain geographies? Is it efficiency? Is it diversification for economic purposes? Or are you also looking at what Minister Mirzoyan mentioned, something beyond just the bottom lines, something that you will lean into?
Well, first of all, I'm happy to learn by Minister Jaishankar that India has such an interest for the Mediterranean. This is very good for us. Okay, but but this, in my opinion, makes sense because it means you have certainly an interest of having free access to all the world. And the experience of the Red Sea of the last 1.5 years has really created big concern in those countries facing the Mediterranean. And happy to learn that CMA-CGM has announced they will come back more and more via Suez Canal. And also, thank you very much, Mrs. Sade, for this beautiful venue where you are hosting us. A wonderful place. Thank you very much. Now, I think, I cannot enter into your type of consideration, but I believe what is clear nowadays is that every supply chain manager needs not only one alternative, he needs 2, 3, 4 alternatives. Therefore, who is working on the supply chains is always looking for alternative ways to make resilient his work. And IMEC is for us, for the Mediterranean, an incredibly important tool, and I'm happy that Italy is a signatory of IMEC, and I'm happy that our government is supporting also the selection of my hometown Port Trieste as a gateway for IMEC, and I think within the European Union we should work to make this become a reality. This is not for me, maybe not for my children, but for my grandchildren for sure.
Okay, we can take a couple of questions if there are. If someone wants to jump in, there are mics here in the room, and we can turn to you. But we are going to bunch a couple of them together. So if someone wants to come in, please do raise your hands. I can see one hand at the back there. And anyone else? Can I see any other hand? I can see one. And one right here in the front. So we'll have 2 questions, and then we'll come back to the panel for their final words. So go ahead. Introduce yourself, brief introduction, and the question.
Yes, my name is Jan Lachenmeier. I'm from the German-Indian Innovation Corridor. And we talked a lot about the infrastructure, which was more let's say, physical infrastructure, as I have an interest in the innovation, on the innovation side. So maybe a few words on the new relationship between India and Europe in terms of the digital infrastructure, but not just the infrastructure, but also innovation per se as an innovation partnerships.
Okay, and the second question was right here. Go ahead, introduce yourselves.
So, Karen Gilberdag, San Francisco. So, I would like esteemed panel also to consider, the That's my impression. That rebuilding the order, we talked kind of strengthening the logistics, seems like the thinking process going linear. So with all the changes which we living through, and coming from definitely technological epicenter, I would like to hear your thoughts, number one, and also think that the changes are going to be not linear. Rebuilding it will means redesigning. And this is, by the way, pretty much the great opportunities for countries like Armenia to have much bigger play in this kind of new world, new order.
Okay, I think that's, so we have two questions. We'll turn back to you for the answers, but I would also like all of you, as you close, and these are your final interventions, one big idea to make this relationship more special. Okay, so that's the thing. Well, how can we sweeten this relationship further, Abigail? And the two questions: innovation, and of course, the non-linear thinking that is required. I mean, in fact, let me problematize that question. Was the world facing linear turbulence at any time, or was it always non-linear in some sense? So let me turn to you, Abigail. Then I'll turn to Francesco. Then we'll go to the two ministers. So first to you, Abigail.
Okay, so the questions are intertwined, right? From a European perspective, there is a to-do list if we want to be a power for the world of tomorrow. And there is accelerating innovation, lowering energy prices. If not, our companies are going to suffocate, and increase security. In all these three aspects, which are basically the key to European economic growth, you see that there could be complementarities with the most trusted Indo-Pacific partners that we have, and India. So research and innovation, we do need Indian mobility, we do need the skills, the talent, and we need to have that exchange, and we need the Indian market. So basically, for innovation to work out, that's going to be key. Lowering energy prices, I think I made a case about this question of rare earth. I gave one element, but basically critical resources, it's either we do it together, but Europe alone, this is not going to work out. On increasing security, I think I've said it, we are waiting for our Indo-Pacific partner to go beyond recognizing us as an economic partner only, but to have this strategic and security and defense-oriented relationship and recognition.
Francesco?
Well, if we speak about connectivity nowadays, it's certainly not only the movement of goods from one place to another, it is data and energy. So for sure, this is a part which is extremely important. I was last week in the transport fair in Munich in Germany, and I met several Indian companies that are proposing their products and their ideas in the IT part of business, and I'm sure that IMEC and the connection between people that are established via IMEC will only facilitate this. So this is my simple answer.
And one thing that we can do to deepen this relationship, one thing, one idea. One idea that can strengthen the India-EU partnership.
Repeating meetings like this one, which create also...
I'm in business, okay? Okay. Okay. Minister Mirzoyan.
Well, I really promise that this time I will be really short. So to answer to your question, the Armenian solution, Armenian response is, first, when it comes to logistics, it's crossroads of peace. For those who are interested, we have brochures. We can with some details here. This is our part of the west-east or east-west or north-south passage. We will take care of it. And secondly, innovation, AI, and big data centers. I already said that Armenia is a safe haven in that context. Thank you.
Minister Jaishankar.
The question, what is the one big idea for India and the European Union? I see the FTA not as a big idea. I think it's a foundation which will enable us. I would say the big idea is probably in the digital sphere. And to me, it would be a combination of how we align on AI, on semiconductors, on fintech, on education, and on talent mobility. I think if these 5 parts really come together, I think you have the kernel of what is a very big idea and a big game changer in the relationship. The second question on the world order, I just say this, that, when the world order is sliding into increasing uncertainty, of course, that uncertainty would continue. But it's natural for this is Newton's third law, everything will produce its opposite. So you're going to get new relationships of greater certainty and new zones. Countries, bigger countries, more influential countries will create more zones of certainty. So I don't think, looking ahead, we should expect uncertainty will just go on because it suits somebody to stay in that particular state of mind. I think everybody else also has their interest. Everybody else also has their game plan. And my sense is, with the passage of time, you will see countervailing forces to that uncertainty unfold.
I think it's very difficult to capture very rich conversation. I'm not going to try and do that, but I think the takeaway from this panel is that this is the relationship which is going through a special moment. This is the time to do more. This is the time to build those foundations through FTAs and other partnerships. And this is a world where we require multiple choices. And it is a world where we have only a few we can trust. So best of luck, Minister, and best of luck to all of you in finding those trusted choices that can enable us a more resilient and prosperous future. Please join me in applauding this panel, and let me turn it over to Pankaj.